Before we begin, please hit that like button, share, and subscribe for more. Thanks for being part of the story. It all began about 10 years ago when 3 of my friends and I decided to take a road trip to a popular getaway spot in the northern part of the region. One of my friends managed to borrow a car from his cousin. The cousin had bought it used. It was already old and had a lot of mileage on it. But that didn't matter to us. We were just happy to have a car at all. We were on a tight budget and didn't want to spend money on a motel. So our plan was to leave early in the evening, drive through the night, and arrive at our destination by late morning. It sounded like the perfect laid-back adventure. On the day of the trip, we hit the road at 5 p.m. Everything went according to plan. Since it was a weekday, traffic was light, the roads were clear, and we cruised along at a comfortable pace, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, depending on the stretch. As night fell and we passed through a rural province, the road grew darker. Streetlights became scarce. There were fewer and fewer cars around, and soon we found ourselves surrounded by complete silence. Then, something unexpected happened, something you'd never want to happen on a road trip. The car started acting up. The steering suddenly became heavy and hard to control. One of my friends, who was driving, decided to pull over to the side of the road. We all got out to check, and sure enough, one of the tires was completely flat, not a bit of air left in it. None of us had seen it coming. And being young, with none of us having ever owned a car, not a single one of us knew the first thing about fixing a tire, or anything about cars, for that matter. But we popped open the trunk anyway, as if we already knew what to do. Inside, we found a jack and a wrench, but no spare tire. Not that it would have mattered much, none of us even knew how to change a tire. Panic set in, no one knew what to do. Then one of our friends spoke up.
Just sitting here isn't going to solve anything. Let's try driving a little farther. Maybe there's a shop nearby.
With no better options, we decided to go with her suggestion. We got back in the car and drove slowly forward, hoping, however unlikely, that a miracle might happen. After creeping along for about 500 meters, we all suddenly shouted in relief. Up ahead, there was a small sign that read, 24-hour tire repair, next alley. Without hesitation, we turned into the alley. It was narrow, dark, and lined with thick vegetation on both sides. As we followed the winding path, we finally spotted a building, but it looked more like someone's house than a shop. There was a single neon light turned on out front and a small sign that said tire repair. Maybe it had been renovated into a shop, or maybe it was originally a shop turned into a residence. The building was a modest 2-story wooden structure tucked away in an eerily quiet spot. Tall trees surrounded it, their branches reaching over the path like they were closing in. The yard was overgrown with weeds. Off to the side, a few rusted cars sat abandoned. Old tires and scattered tools were piled out front, like the place hadn't been cleaned in years. When we arrived, the front door was closed, but since the sign back at the alley entrance said 24-hour service, we figured someone must be inside. We stepped out of the car, exchanged nervous glances, and decided to call out for help. After just a moment of knocking and calling, the door creaked open, and an elderly man stepped outside. I approached him and asked politely, "Excuse me, our tire's gone flat. Could you fix it?" The old man came over to take a look. After inspecting the tire, he asked if we'd driven on it for too long while it was flat, because the tire was damaged beyond repair. Patching it wouldn't be enough. We all felt nervous. We hadn't realized that driving on a completely flat tire would ruin it. Then again, we didn't know anything about cars. After listening to us explain how far we still had to go, he offered a solution. He could sell us one of his old spare tires. It wasn't the perfect size, but it would be good enough to get us to our destination. He explained that his shop was too small to stock every size, but once we reached the city, we could easily replace it with the correct one. We agreed. It was the most practical option, and honestly, we didn't have many choices. We looked at each other and gave silent nods, confirming the decision. The old man nodded slightly too, then went to get his tools. We all felt a bit of relief, but despite that, we couldn't shake a strange feeling about the place. It was past midnight by now, and everything was eerily still. The only house in sight was the old man's, and even that looked half abandoned, run down and hauntingly quiet, like no one had lived there in years. The only sound in the silence was the clanking and clattering of the old man's tools echoing through the darkness. Trying to shake off the uneasy feeling, we chatted about random things to lighten the mood while the old man worked on the car. But then, out of nowhere, I started to feel uncomfortable. My stomach twisted in pain. It was probably something I'd eaten from a street vendor earlier. I needed a bathroom. Fast. I turned to the old man and asked if there was one I could use. He slowly lifted his head and pointed toward the house.
Go inside. Walk straight down the hallway. The bathroom's on your right.
As soon as the old man finished speaking, I didn't waste a second. I rushed into the house. After opening the door and stepping inside, I found the entire place completely dark, with only a faint light from upstairs casting a dim glow onto the lower floor. The air was damp and heavy with a musty smell that drifted in and out. The silence was so thick it made my skin crawl. I looked around, trying to find the bathroom, but no matter where I turned, I couldn't see anything that looked like it. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a woman standing on the staircase landing. She was wearing a long floral nightgown, had shoulder-length hair, and her face was pale white. She stood completely still, like a statue. With the growing pain in my stomach, I asked, "Excuse me, which way is the bathroom?" The woman slowly turned to look at me. Without saying a word, she raised her hand and pointed to one of the doors. I quickly thanked her and rushed over. As soon as I opened the door, I was relieved to see a toilet in the corner. It was exactly what I'd been searching for. I stepped inside and took care of business. About 5 minutes later, I came back out, but when I looked around to thank the woman again, she was already gone. Feeling much better, I walked back outside to rejoin my friends, who were still standing in front of the house. As I approached, they started making jokes the way any friends would, asking if I'd made it in time or if I needed to change my pants.
So, did you make it in time? Or do you need a new pair of pants instead? Ha ha ha.
They all laughed. I laughed too and said, I almost pooped in my pants because I couldn't find the bathroom at first. But thankfully, a lady inside showed me where it was. Otherwise, I'd have been in a real mess. I think she was the old man's wife. At that moment, the old man, who was still working on the tire, overheard our conversation and suddenly froze. He slowly lifted his head and looked up at me, his expression suddenly serious and strange.
What did you just say? You saw someone in the house?
He asked. I nodded immediately. Yeah, there was a woman inside wearing a floral nightgown. She was standing on the stairs. She showed me where the bathroom was. Wasn't that your wife? The old man went silent for a moment. Then he said,
Wait here. I'll be right back.
He hurried into the house. A few moments later, he came out holding an old photo in a wooden frame. He showed it to me and asked,
Is this the woman you just saw?
I looked and instantly nodded. Yes, that's her. She's the one who pointed me to the bathroom. Why? Is something wrong? The old man let out a long, heavy sigh. Everyone went quiet, sensing something serious and strange. The air around us suddenly felt colder. In a quiet, almost broken voice, he said,
That woman you just saw, she was my wife, but she passed away many years ago from a chronic illness.
I was the most shaken of all. My body trembled. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you serious? You're not joking? I asked.
It's true. She died from a chronic illness.
The old man said solemnly. His words hung in the air, and none of us knew what to say. He went on to explain that ever since her passing, he had lived alone in that house, but had always felt her presence, as if she had never truly left. Now that someone else had actually witnessed her presence, he felt assured he wasn't just imagining it. Hearing that sent another wave of unease through us. One of our friends confessed she'd felt the same fear. She hadn't even dared to glance back at the house while the old man was working on the tire. Soon after, the job was done. We paid him, thanked him politely, and quickly got into the car. We drove off without another word. It wasn't until we left the narrow alley and merged onto the main road that we finally looked at each other and all said the same thing at once. While driving out, each of us had felt a chill crawl down our spine. It was as if someone had been watching us, but none of us had dared to turn around to look.